Hey guys, VG Logic here, and today I want to talk to you about a PlayStation fighting game I've been playing a lot of recently called Kensei Sacred Fist. Now before we really dive into it, I just want to say I'm not a savant when it comes to fighting games, but I enjoy them and I'm normally competent enough to get through them on their default difficulty settings. Now I rented out this game ages ago when it was originally released and really loved how it played. It's actually one of the few games I rented out more than once, but until very recently I just couldn't remember its name. It's just by chance I found it on eBay. Now my copy of the game has writing all over it for some reason, but hey, at least I finally found it again. Anyway, this game was published by Konami and developed by Kensei. Well, at least that's what it says on the title screen. Kensei actually stands for Konami Computer Entertainment Tokyo, so this is a Konami game. It was released on the PlayStation in 1998, so that's a year after Tekken 3. It's also worth noting, Kensei did not get an arcade release, and this is more than likely owing to the game's pace, which I'll cover a little bit later. Now I'm sure if you've been paying any attention to the gameplay on screen, you will have noticed it really doesn't look like much. Not on graphical par with the aforementioned Tekken 3, and it lacks the visual flair of some of the more fantasy beat-em-ups like the Bloody Roar games, and I can tell you, this bare-bones look seems to bleed through onto the controls and the gameplay as well. I guess the only thing that really stands out to a player right away is the music, which is kinda cool on some stages, but I assure you the bare bones thing isn't really that bad. The controls are unique, or at least compared to Tekken and Street Fighter they are. In Tekken you have 2 punch and 2 kick buttons, each button controls a limb basically on a PlayStation controller, and in Street Fighter you have 3 punch and 3 kick buttons, ordered in level of power. In Kensei Sacred Fist you only have 1 punch and 1 kick button. Now if that seems a bit odd, throw is a single button too instead of the conventional kick and punch at the same time, and block or guard has a button all of its own. It isn't just backwards away from your opponent like it is in a lot of other fighters. This makes Kensei unlike anything I have played at least, and considering it came out after Tekken 3, it really needed to do stuff like this to be a bit different. Combos here are your standard fare at least, and are normally strings of 3 or 4 punches and kicks that once executed will be very hard to counter. It takes a while to unlearn holding back or back and down to block things, but it being replaced with a single button has its own rewards. Blocking seems to be more of a stance in this game, meaning your character doesn't simply just block attacks. On the contrary, it normally means your character dodges and weaves out of the way, which looks impressive and feels really satisfying each time you put it off. Oddly enough, there is no crouch button either, so that one block command also causes your character to react to low blows as well. If you are holding down and guard, you will evade the attack completely. Holding block but no direction will cause you to take damage, but you won't land on your butt, you'll just stagger away. Now this mechanic probably wouldn't work so well in a faster paced fighter. In Kensei Sacred Fist, every combination you pull off normally requires at least a little bit of thinking. Not in the execution of the move, as that's normally quite straightforward, but more in when you will do it. As a player, you will have to learn the range of your attacks and when your opponent will be vulnerable for you to strike. That isn't to say that you don't do this in other fighting games, but in this one with its much slower pace, it becomes more of a game of strategy, which just feels so awesome when it goes your way. The game feels like it's trying to root itself in realism, with jumps not being all that high and how the fighters respond to being hit. It was a good way to go. Even after playing for a brief amount of time, you can see why this game probably wouldn't be too suited to an arcade cabinet. You really just couldn't expect new players to pick this one up on the fly. I have always enjoyed stories in games, no matter how contrived or cheesy. Do you remember when Tekken manuals even used to have the characters' blood types in their descriptions? Even though the information was completely irrelevant, for me at least, it's hard not to appreciate a game's canon. It's even harder for me in that respect to understand when a game has no story. Kensei Sacred Fist has no story. The way the main mode works, and it's called normal mode, not story mode, is simple. You have 8 fights against other characters in the roster. The 9th is against the character that you will normally unlock upon completion of the mode, and the 10th is against this short fat guy called Zu. When you take him down, you fight against this scary looking guy called Kaya, but it's never explained why during gameplay. Now maybe it's in the manual, but there isn't even an end video. Heck, there isn't even a text story or a conclusion. The credits roll, if you have unlocked a character it tells you, and then you're back at the title screen. I would have even settled for something like this. so-and-so defeated so-and-so in the tournament, finally bringing vengeance to his sister's killers, etc. That's literally all I would have wanted. Now obviously I know in a 2-player arena this makes no difference at all, and I'm sure a lot of people wouldn't care about the game's story full stop, but having none at all, I feel like the game just misses out here and is trying to cut corners. This is where that bare bones feel to everything can come across as a bit of a negative. Other than that, I do find it quite hard to rag on Kensei Sacred Fist. It's great fun to play even if the AI can be a bit predictable at times. Thick as you like. When you finish the game with all the characters, you unlock this cool little racing game. It's again very bare bones, but it's a nice little addition. Perhaps my favourite part of this mode is I can listen to the music almost uninterrupted. It's almost as random as Tekken Ball mode. Well, that's basically the game in a nutshell. It's pretty fun and it's nice that it's different to its graphically and technically advanced competition. I hope you enjoyed watching. Don't forget to smack that like button if you did, and if you fancy seeing more random PlayStation stuff, subscribe. Thanks for watching.